Hey, bro, let's talk about those spiritual traumas. What's really going on? My name is Pastor Devin, and you're watching You Good, Bro? What's going on, y'all? Welcome back to another new episode where we're going to probably, more than likely, embark on a new series speaking on overcoming trauma. Overcoming spiritual abuse, overcoming emotional trauma, but generally the path to ultimately begin our healing process and keep on moving. All right. But today we're going to talk about the beginning steps of that path. Here we go. Today's scripture comes from Psalm 34, 17 through 18, New Living Translation. And it says, "The Lord hears his people when they call to him for help. He rescues them from all their troubles. The Lord is close to the brokenhearted. He rescues those whose spirits are crushed." All right. So the interesting thing about this specific psalm, the beginning of it, at the very least, Psalm 34, catches King David at a time where he's trying to flee Saul. And so he gets to a point, and this correlates to 1 Samuel 22, 10 through 15, and then going into the next verse of chapter 22, where pretty much King David, David, not king at this particular juncture, is he has to prove or show his madness to King Ashish. And so just to even be in this territory or this area, he has to subjugate himself to such stupidity things, such crazy things as almost foaming at the mouth, saliva dripping down his beard, writing scratches on the posts. Like, he has to do all these things. And then the king essentially says, "How can we let this man through here? This guest is not really a guest. This man is mad. Clearly, he's mad." So David then goes to a cave in a duel, where then 400 of his servants also followed him there, pretty much. And so they built up a community, in other words, pretty much, right? But this psalm particularly catches my eye because you break it down in a couple of ways, starting with verse 17. Again, "The Lord hears his people when they call to him for help. He rescues them from all their troubles." In this version, the New Living Translation, it's an easy to read, right? But in the King James Version, it talks about the fact that the Lord recognizes that it calls to the righteous. And man, that's something that we as men specifically have a hard time trying to grasp a hold of. Do I really know who I am? Do I really know? I mean, honestly, let's dial it back a bit. Do I know that I'm righteous? Because that's who God hears the calls of, according to this verse 17. He hears the calls of the righteous. And those pretty much who are righteous, that righteous word, it takes a lot out of us. because we're already thinking we're coming to a state where we're not perfect. We're not good enough. So here I am as a man, as a father, as a husband. Well, first off, in the order, correct order, husband, then father. Because I saw this thing the other time where you have to take care of the person that's going to ultimately who you brought the product into this world with first, aka our wives or fiance if you're in that particular point of your life, right? But man, we often forget that we're called to be righteous. We're called to be more than just a substandard human being. Like really, really, really take that into effect here, all right? You're not meant to be, and I've said this plenty of occasions, so if I sound like a broken record, it's for a reason. But really, think about this, man. God put you on this earth to do so much more, right? Like, more than just go to a 9 to 5, live out days of our lives, and then just think that there's no hope at all. Like, it can't be like that every day. I know the feeling. I've said this story before of how I experienced church hurt myself, thinking I wasn't good enough. And I was like, I'm tired of this. I deserve this. I deserve that. But then not really thinking about the fact that I'm only letting myself down. I'm getting in the way of my true calling for my life. I'm getting in the way of God's moving things into perfect alignment for me. I had the nerve to think that, right? In terms of my church hurt. Like I would think that God didn't hear my cry at that time, so why should I listen to him then? God didn't he obviously didn't hear me when I wanted that job at Google. So why should I listen now? Why should I think he's going to listen or come through for me now? Why would I think that all these things? Because I let my mind get in the way of all that. I let my mind drive myself to be mad, dwelling on my own thoughts, dwelling on my own things, thinking that I'm not good enough for his grace, for his mercy, for his passion, for his goodness. Like I mentioned before, last episode, if I'm not mistaken, I keep a journal. I had to write out all of my fears, my thoughts into this one book to help me overcome my own inner demons, my own inner feelings of inadequacy. And then I talked to my spirit, my wife's spiritual mom, who I then adopted as my spiritual mom. Here's looking at you, Pastor Glow. Insider. But I had to get over that thought. Like I can't I can't let these feelings get just clog up my heart anymore. I can't let these failures clog up my heart anymore. I can't let Devin Davis get in the way of Devin Davis anymore. Because all that Devin Davis was focused on was that church hurt me. And yes, they might have. That church hurt me. That church fails to recognize my personal circumstances. Now, let me just pause that right there and say this. If you are experiencing a version of church hurt or church manipulation, we have to recognize the patterns that say that they deviate from God. We have to recognize and stop ourselves and say, you know what? There is a pattern of that person being brokenhearted, that person being brokenhearted. I'm constantly being brokenhearted. I'm not paying attention to the words. I'm listening to the words that are being said from that pulpit, from that person, and nothing's changing. If you're experiencing that, then I advise immediate counsel. I advise immediate counsel. Because you're going to end up hurting yourself in ways that are incomprehensible. But that's another nugget for another episode, right? But you know, how do we as Christian men, how can we possibly get out of this rut that is called spiritual hurt, spiritual abuse? How can I possibly say, I'm tired of the hurt, I'm tired of the trauma, I'm tired of the stress, I'm tired of the de-stress that I'm getting from this stress. I'm tired of not thinking I'm good enough. I'm tired of it being broken into my spirit that I'll never deserve the love of God. That is the underlying problem for mostly all church hurt. Our spirits will get broken to the point that we think we are inadequate to receive God's love. That we'll end up thinking, I can never possibly receive such grace that God gives. Nah, fam. That's a lie. It's a lie. It's a lie. That is a lie. Don't believe that lie. That is nothing but, hey, call back to an earlier episode. That is nothing but a belittling inner voice that's trying to root and fester in your mind. It might even possibly fester in your dreams. It might even possibly fester from someone else speaking a negativity into your own life. Nah. You deserve love, bro. You don't deserve hate. You deserve love. I need you. man, I feel like I'm sorry if if it seems like I've said that specific phrase before, but really that's what it comes down to. The church hurt, the church trauma, the spiritual abuse, the spiritual manipulation. Because the check this out. In verse 18, it breaks up that fallacy. The Lord is close to the brokenhearted. He rescues those whose spirits are crushed. In the King James Version, it said contrite. I'll get to that as a point later on down the road, down here in this episode. But whose spirits are crushed. That's all depression is a spirit that's trying to crush your will to survive and live a better life. That's all these other emotions are, that try to crush your inner spirit, that try to say that you are an inadequate man and you are a failure. Nah, man. You're not a failure in Jesus' name. Nah, fam. Now look, this might have been something that passed down from your father or your mother. Because at some point in time, you might have been thinking, all right, my mother does not love me, or my father does not love me. My father ended up leaving. My mother ended up leaving. All right, that's cool. But there is someone that still loves you, despite that past person that tries to be relevant for your against your future. That because trauma, man, it loves to elevate the past figures in our lives just to affect our futures. But we got to get over this one particular fact, or learn to embrace this one particular fact. The past is the past. It can either build you or break you. It can either help build the foundations of your present to build a brighter future, or it can end up destroying and poisoning your present soil to make your whole future a graveyard. That's what spiritual abuse can do to you, to us. So look, I'm going to leave you with these particular points because, hey, you know, that's where everything starts. But everybody has a different path, you know? Your path is different from my path. But as long as it's a path to emotional, mental, and spiritual well-being, as long as we overcome these spiritual traumas that try their darndest to inflict their issues on our present lives, until we take care of these things, nothing else matters. But as long as the path is established, that's all that matters, yo. That's all that matters. So, first point. Before I even go to that, I'm sorry. The battle starts in our minds. The battle starts in our minds. The battle for our lives starts in our minds. Nah, man, gone are the days where we box stuff up. What does Bad Boys do? Bad Boys 2 does Will Smith's character, Mike Lowry. We're gonna put all these emotions and throw them and put them in a box and throw them in the ocean. Nah, fam. We can't. That ocean is dirty and polluted now. That ocean is jacked up because we keep throwing these boxes of emotions into the ocean. Can't afford to do that no more. Can't afford to do that for our lives, our minds, our families deserve better. If we don't believe in our minds who we are truly called to be, then all of this is for naught. All right? So let's keep this in mind when we're trying to root out the evils of spiritual abuse. Point one. And this is going to be another broken record sort of thing, if I've said this before. Forgive yourself. That's a start. It's a start. Forgive yourself. Forgive yourself for failing. Forgive yourself for listening to that person. Forgive yourself for allowing you to go down that path with that person. Forgive yourself. And then eventually forgive them. But if you forgive yourself, it's going to be hard. It's going to be a lot easier to possibly forgive them. Because you're dealing with yourself first. Because that's, if we take care of ourselves first, that allows us to get to the point where we can be righteous, be better. God hears the prayers of the righteous. The righteous availeth much. Sound familiar? But if we're harboring bitterness, if we're harboring this hurt against our own well-being, then how can we possibly be righteous? We'll keep on ending up in a cycle of perpetual hate and self-loathing. Non-stop cycle. And where does that bring you? Right back to the trauma. So start off with yourself. Forgive yourself. I'm not asking you to forget. I'm not asking you to forget. Let me be clear. I'm asking you to forgive, starting with you. Two, I mentioned this earlier. God called you not to be a contrite spirit. Contrite, one commentator, forgot the name of him, I'm sorry. One commentator said that the word contrite ultimately breaks down to the spirit being broken out of you. Like your spirit, your will being broken. But we already established in verse 18 that God listens and hears, especially those whose hearts have been broken, whose spirits are no longer being able to will upon themselves or will themselves to life. Like I've said many times before, encourage yourself, right? But all right, what happens when you have no encouragements for yourself to have? How about we go to the person who is able to start and give the encouragement to us to begin with, to be better? to make things easier for us. How about we do that to begin with? Like, if we're able to take care of that and remind ourselves on a daily basis, and I mean a daily basis, because the next morning is going to be different from yesterday's trauma. Trauma tends to come back evil the second time around. Second and third, fourth, whatever. If you're on the umpteenth time, it's okay, just as long as you're fighting it. As long as we're fighting it together. It's all that matters. It's okay. Just keep fighting it. Don't give up. Don't. Yesterday's problem was yesterday's problem. Today is a new problem. I've told many times before to a number of fellas that ask me about advice for, man, now I'm getting to the point where people can ask me about advice for having a kid and being a father. How can I possibly be there as a support for our wives and also for our kids eventually. And I always lead off with take it hour by hour, because yesterday's hour, the last hour is different from the hour that you're currently in, and it's gonna be different. Take time, give yourself an emotional refuge every now and again, because yes, you have to be a support for your wife while she's pregnant. You have to accept that, right? But I have to every now and again acknowledge that, hey, I'm not meant to be a contrite heart. God didn't put me on this earth to deal with depression all the day. God didn't put me on this earth to deal with hurt all day. Nah, man. And then the last point. And I know I've said this on multiple occasions on many episodes before, but every episode is different. And this last point speaks volumes to our minds and to our hearts and to our souls. All right. Now, mind you, it might seem small, but it matters. All right. And it's a lot easier said than done. I've said that to myself. I've heard this. I've said that to, many times whenever my wife says, hey, you should do this. I'm like, all right, well, that's a lot easier for you. Easy for you to say that. And then I got to do it. But trust me, I know. All right. Promise yourself not to go back to that hurt or to the good things that hurt tried to do for you. Promise yourself not to go back to the good things that you thought that hurt was doing for you. Prime example. I thought that since I was under the impression that God wasn't listening to me, that I didn't have to go to church anymore. That I didn't have to deal with any of that. I was under the mad mistake, thinking that I would just be cool, waking up, letting my wife go to church or go to whatever, go to Bible study, all that. And really, at that time, I thought that was good for me. But all that did during that time I wasn't around a community was allow me to be in my own thoughts and let me get worse and let that hate develop from that bitter pill, that offense that I took. No, you can't go back. Things are changed. You have to be different now. Things are different now for us at this particular point. Because when I wrote down in his journal, hey, so and so, I feel like I didn't deserve that. And so I thought I could just hold on to this bitterness and hold on to this offense. That's what church hurt also is. Offense. I thought I could hold on to this offense to the day I die. Silly man you are. Silly man you are. That offense will outlive you if you let it. That offense will outlive you. Meanwhile, we're sitting here in this particular point going, well, this feels good. I fill this void with something else. What are you filling your void with? Laziness? Not living up to responsibilities? Not being a dad? Not being a good husband? What are you filling your void with? Huh? Because all that's doing is making your spirit more contrite and more crushed than it already was when that offense started, when that trauma started, when that abuse started. And another thing, if you're watching this, thank you for watching. But if you're thinking that you're a man, I'll never deal with abuse, you are mistaken. There might be abuse talking to you right now. I'm just saying. But I say all that to say this, man. With all of my heart, I look at you through this means of your device, TV, whatever. I say all that to say this. You deserve the love of Christ. Period. You deserve the love of Christ. Period. And I believe if we truly do deserve it, then we better fight for all of our minds, fight for our spirits, for all we have, just to get to that. If that blessed your life, I hope it did, and it will. Come on back next week for another new episode. Please be sure to click that bell for all subscriptions, notifications, like, comment, and share this channel. Follow us on Instagram at YouGoodBro316. And as always, I love you. And I'll see you down the road. What lame thing am I going to do today? Peace.